Good evening, lovelies, and welcome to another segment of Scarlette Speaks. I am your host, Madam Scarlette, and I have been in the BDSM community for over 30 plus years. And I'm hoping that some of my information will help you and educate you in the lifestyle a little bit more every time that you watch. So I start my story a little bit by telling you how I got into the community. It's an interesting little tale. I'm not going to take up much of your time with it, but I'll give you a really brief concept of how I got involved. I've always been a strong and confident individual who's taken charge and been in control most of my life. You don't just wake up one day and go, I'm going to be a dominant. That's exactly the kind of life that I want. It's a thought process. Some people like to be dominant in bedroom, and that is a role that you play, such as role playing, obviously, but I don't role play that way. I am dominant. It is my life, and that is exactly who I am. There's nothing wrong with role play. There's nothing wrong with any other aspect of the community, but I'm just defining who I am so you understand why I'm giving you this information and why I've taken on the mantle of educating and helping others in the community and hoping to reach everybody globally I can so that they can learn a lot more. I also help host a show. Well, I host a show and my submissive Amy Jade helps me with that one. So there's another show that's a lot longer than my small segments, but these ones are a little bit shorter, a little bit more intimate, and will give you a little bit more information in small bites. So when I talk about being a better dominant, okay, so I helped my friend in the community, and that's how I started, by the way. He had wanted to be a sissy, to train under a dominant and to learn to be somebody who can serve somebody else. So, and as a teenager, I decided with my friend to help him dress, makeup, and to look for a dominant. And that's how I kind of ended up in the community a very long time ago, and learned an awful lot through that and through the coinciding years after that fact. I didn't just become a dominant and be, pushy and overwhelming to people. I learned to be submissive at first in order to learn to feel how it is, what I do to other people, because I feel it is my need to understand what I'm doing to other people before I can decide to be their dominant. Now, this takes me to the point of being a better dominant. Now, when you're talking to potential submissives, you want to be able to vet them. And vetting is something I will go into later. Again, that was something I covered in one of my other videos with Amy Jade, but I will do it in the solo segments as well, for the smaller bites. So vetting is communicating with prospective submissives, understanding who they are, understanding their needs, and seeing if you are a good fit. You can't just go ahead and say, oh yeah, you can be my submissive and that's it. You need to be able to understand if this person is going to work well with you and if you can work well with them. Because submitting is not just about them doing everything you tell them to do. It is them consciously deciding to give you their control, to give you and hand you their reins and say, you know what, you take control, you do it. And it doesn't always work out. So there are 3 C's that I'm going to cover right now. So one is consent. And that's a major one. It will be covered consistently throughout every single episode. Consent is essential. Without consent, you don't have anything. So consent, chemistry, and communication. So consent is knowing that you have the right, from that submissive, to be able to do these things that they want or that you want to do to them. So the communication also comes in at that point where you talk about what the plans are, what your needs are, what your wants are. And that's both of you. You both have needs, wants, and desires. And there has to be that chemistry. You have to be able to know that you're going to be able to work together well, to see that things are going to be good. Because without chemistry, like in any relationship, if it's not there, it doesn't work. It falls apart. It's not worth it. So why do it? So getting consent, you can do it in the form of verbal or written consent. Sometimes written is a far better thing because then you know it's there and you can go back to it and reflect upon it and add to it or change it if you need to. But of course, it has to be from both sides. You can't just decide to do whatever you want at a moment's notice. Both things have to be agreed upon. So there is such a thing as consensual non-consent. I will cover that later. That is something, again, that is a little bit different than consent, but there's still consent involved, obviously, with the wording, as you can see. So without consent, you cannot go ahead and do things like whipping somebody, beating somebody, spanking somebody, making them dress, making them take photographs, doing all the things that you want to do or see that you've seen that you think are fantastic and are one of your desires. You have to be able to ensure that that person feels comfortable with you, wants you to do it, and has given you their express consent. So this falls into things like saying play parties and just other events and stuff like that. You can't just walk up to somebody and decide, oh, I'm going to go ahead and do what I want to you. It doesn't work that way. That is not how it works. The movies are wrong. The shows are wrong. Books are wrong. It does not work that way. If you do things that way, then you're doing it wrong. I'm just, yeah. It's just, unless there is express consent, that is wrong. It is something I've made my whole life upon in terms of the BDSM community is consent. And I can't say it enough. I know you're going to get sick of the word. I don't care. It's necessary. Chemistry. If you do not have chemistry, if you 2, 3, whoever, how many are involved, do not have chemistry, you do not work together. You know how it is without chemistry. It could be that way with relationships, coworkers, people that you just come against, say neighbors, whatever. There's just sometimes people just don't work well together, and it's awful. It's a giant big mess. Get away from it. Go. Just leave. Forget it. So you need the chemistry for it to be able to work. So this is why you talk. This is why you communicate. This is why, say, as a dominant myself, I don't just walk into a situation and go, I am dominant. I am Madam Scarlette. You're going to do exactly as I say. No, I will talk to a person first and see if what they want, what they need, and what they desire is in alignment with my own needs, wants, and desires. And if it isn't, they need to go and find somebody else that's more appropriate for them. And that's perfectly fine. I feel nothing wrong with that at all, because that's the way it should be in the community. It's like finding any kind of relationship that has to work effectively. So if the chemistry is there and you're communicating well, you'll start talking about things like your needs and what you want to do to progress yourself further in the community. So as a good dominant, you will sit there and you'll ask a number of questions. You'll find out who the person is that you're dealing with. You need to know who they are as a person. They're not just a piece of meat. They're not just a mannequin. They're not a nobody. They are a human being, a living, breathing human being who is in need of expressing themselves in a different way in the community. And it is hinging upon you to assist them in that way. You are teaching them, you are training them, you are taking them into your hands and molding them to be a better person than they even are now. And that's because they want to. So you need to take that time and learn who they are, find out more about their family, more about their life. Again, these are things that they will talk to you about when they're comfortable. And there's another thing, there has to be a comfort level and trust. If there's no trust or comfort in what you're doing, you're not going to get them to submit. And they're not going to want you to be their dominant. That's just the way it is. And I've been very lucky to take the time that I have over the years to learn how to build trust better with people, to learn to understand who they are, what they want, what they need, and what the final outcomes are. And sometimes there is no final outcome. Sometimes they just want to expand themselves. They want to push their boundaries and find out more of who they are. So these things can actually help them in their lives, in their future relationships, if they're not in a physical relationship with you, but it can help them with family, different dynamics such as at work and anywhere in life. And what they need to be able to take away from you and your training and what you're doing is that they actually become a better person, better being able to listen, to adhere to things, to be able to express themselves more. You don't understand sometimes, but these roles that we take on as dominants, these things that we do as educators, helpers, trainers, whatever you feel you are. I end up being a mommy dom. I have littles, I have sissies, I have brats, I have pets. They range across the board. And you take on a different role for each individual. And sometimes, as like say a mommy dom for a little, you end up being, or a daddy dom, you end up being somebody who is encouraging them and is helping them maybe go through what they have gone through in the past, maybe giving them something that they didn't have. As you know, as somebody who trains sissies, somebody who wants to see themselves as the person that they've always wanted to be, somebody who has seen themselves a little outside of everything that everybody else has seen them as. And that helps to teach them more about themselves intellectually and physically and emotionally. So a lot of what we do is very, very psychological. We are dealing with a lot of different things for each individual. And that is why you need to be able to communicate. And that's the last C, communication. So you need to be able to understand where these people are coming from, where your submissives who are trusting you with their lives and everything that they are, to be able to help them express, to help them to divest themselves of anything they may have gone through. Sometimes it's even dealing with trauma, and that is a very big thing. If somebody's trusting you with that, they are putting a lot on you to be able to trust you that much, that they feel that you are worth that trust and that dedication and that loyalty. And I have been lucky enough to have that placed upon me so many times by so many people. But it takes a lot to be able to understand, to listen, and to be able to assist each one of these individuals who comes into your life, because they are important and they play a critical role for you as well. Because you as a dominant will learn more about who you are. You'll learn more about your strengths, your abilities, your educational abilities, and what will form you to be a better person in the long run too. And that helps you with future relationships and other relationships you currently have, again, in the workplace. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and it should be that way. Anything that you take on in these roles must be beneficial for both parties. Again, sometimes it's just about play, but even that has its place for these individuals, because they all have a very specific need, even if it is just about a spank or if it's about anything else. There's always a purpose and a reason why somebody wants to come and talk to you and have you as their dominant. So learning to be a better dominant is to be able to understand consent, chemistry, and communication. And those three things are essential in learning to be a better dominant. So I hope I gave you a little bit to learn today, and I hope you can use that in anything future for your educational purposes. Thank you again for tuning in. And once again, if you like, please hit subscribe, like, and share. And I'll be back again soon. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
I am your church, these are your sins. Don't you wish